So a couple of days ago, the Washington Post came out with a fantastic story. Now, apparently, there was a woman who went to the news outlet with a story about Roy Moore. Now, in this story, she alleges that when she was 15 years old, she had sex with Roy Moore and was pregnant. Well, now that's a juicy story, right? So any agency is like, ooh, I'm interested in that story. If this is true, well, this is a bombshell. Also considering that in the story, she had gotten an abortion not soon after. Oh, man, look at pro-life Roy Moore getting an abortion. Oh, my God. First getting this underage girl, teenage girl pregnant, and then an abortion. Well, this story happened to be too good to be true. And so there were a few red flags. And so the Washington Post did their due journalistic diligence and found out that, yes, it was too good to be true. It was a fake. So let me give you some of the details on that. Now, in a series of interviews over 2 weeks, that woman shared a dramatic story about an alleged sexual relationship with Roy Moore in 1992 that led to an abortion when she was just 15. Again, everything is there. It's very, very salacious. It's Roy Moore. It's an underage girl. Perfect, right? Too perfect. During the interview, she repeatedly pressed the reporters, and this is how they found out that it was too perfect. Because, again, one of these red flags is that she pressed reporters to give their opinions on the effects that her claims could have on Moore's candidacy. Now, that is not something that a victim would generally be concerned about. Like, most victims are like, I just want to get my story out. I want people to know what happened to me and what kind of person this person is. But this one's like, so tell me if your opinion. Is Roy Moore going to lose the election? Like, if I come out with my story, is it guaranteed that he's going to lose? I don't know. I'm just a reporter. I'm just here to get the facts. And whatever happens, happens. And if this is true, this is an important story. And it goes to the character of Roy Moore. But really, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to get the facts, right? That's the whole point. So the fact that she was so worried about what would happen to his election, again, super shady, super weird, right? Now, here's the thing, right? So, look, if you want the opinion of a reporter, right? Again, that looks super weird, right? Because their job is to report the story and not to talk about the reporter's opinions. Now, that's actually the opposite of what conservatives think the media actually does. See, the conservatives are like, no, all we are is opinion because we don't have facts and we make things up in order to serve a political agenda. So we think that that's what liberals do all the time. When actually, no, a lot of liberal publications, they don't make things up. And they actually do their due diligence. They do report things. And when they get things wrong, they will come back and they'll actually admit, yeah, we misreported this. We apologize. Now, that's on straight reporting. So the Washington Post has done a lot of opinion pieces and op-eds that have actually driven me crazy because they have a bias, right? Now, I think it's an establishment bias. It's a bias of the status quo, a bias of the cocktail circuit, the Beltway, all that stuff, right? And that's why they go after people like Bernie Sanders, who actually try to upend that system. They can't fathom it. What are you talking about? Why do we need to change the system? The system is working perfectly for me and my friends. Yeah, but again, you're living in this bubble. You have this bubble mentality. That's not necessarily their fault, but they cannot see beyond the Beltway. And so that's where that bias comes from. But when it comes to straight reporting, and especially investigative journalism, the Washington Post and the New York Times actually do a lot of great work. So this is no exception. They actually did their due diligence, right? Now, Post reporters, when confronted with her inconsistency, they confronted her with her inconsistencies, right, in her story, and they had found an internet posting that raised doubts about her motivations. Now, they found all this stuff through their investigation because, again, they have to look into these claims and see if they're true. what they found was, again, things that pointed out that her story had some big red flags in it, big inconsistencies, where it was possibly not true. Now, this internet posting, as I said, raised some doubts. It was a GoFundMe page. And then there was also the fact that reporters had saw her walking into the headquarters of Project Veritas. Now, that organization is headed by James O'Keefe. And basically what they do is that they set up ambushes, right? They will go and deceptively edit videotapes and release them to try to shut down agencies. Remember, they shut down Acorn. They had the famous video with the pimp outfit, which actually wasn't even filmed there, but it was deceptively edited in. They had the baby parts video. So they've done a lot of deceptive practices in order to get their so-called sting videos. And that's what they were trying to do to the Washington Post. Now, when they found out that this woman was hanging out with Project Veritas, again, when they confronted her with this information, she was no longer forthcoming with her story. They said the woman, identified as Jamie T. Phillips, no longer wanted to respond to calls to her cell phone, and her car had remained in the Project Veritas parking lot for at least more than an hour. Now, that's really important because they actually pointed out her name, right? They don't normally do that, especially if she was an alleged victim. But again, her story did not add up. It was so flimsy. And again, she was caught going into this office, that houses this group that targets mainstream journalists to try to shut them down and targets left-leaning groups to try to shut them down. Again, that is super, super shady. So now I'm going to skip a lot of the details here on that, because you should definitely read the piece. I'll put that in the article, in the description box of the video. Sorry. We'll put the article, but I want to read the where this actually had begun. Now, the day after Lee Corfman, the story of Lee Corfman and some of the rest about Roy Moore had come out in the Washington Post, one of the co-authors, Beth Reinard, who co-wrote the article, had received an email the next morning from an alleged victim, this alleged victim. She said, "Roy Moore in Alabama, I might know something, but I need to keep myself safe. How do we do this?" And she went by a pseudonym, Lindsay James. Now, that co-author sent an email, said, "Hey, can we talk off the record? Can we do this by phone? You know, this is the normal stuff." She's like, no phone calls, just internet, and then just email. And then eventually she did open up to do at least one phone call and an in-person meeting. Now, that same day, when that email had come out, Gateway Pundit spread a false story from a Twitter account that said a family friend in Alabama just told my wife that a Washington Post reporter named Beth offered her $1,000 to accuse Roy Moore. That Twitter account had been later deleted and had actually been spreading a lot of misinformation. Now, on November 14th, a pastor in Alabama said he received a voicemail from a man falsely claiming to be a Washington Post reporter and seeking women willing to make damaging remarks about Roy Moore for money. Now, of course, they don't do that. It's not good practice to go and pay people for dirt on other people. So they don't pay people to come out for negative stories. Now, that was the Bernie Bernstein call, by the way. So while this was going on, this reporter was communicating with that woman who wanted to set up a meeting. Now, they met, she said her story, and during that whole meeting, she asked the reporter to guarantee that Moore would lose the election if she decided to go public with her story. She said that she could not predict what the impact would be, the reporter did, and said that she explained to Phillips that her claims would have to be fact-checked. She had asked for documents to corroborate her story. She didn't get those documents. She didn't get what she wanted. She didn't get that guarantee, which is what they were trying to find to film on tape. So she went to another reporter. Now that other reporter, of course, found that GoFundMe page by someone with the same name. It said, I'm moving to New York. I've accepted a job to work in the conservative media movement to combat the lies and deceit of the liberal MSM. I'll be using my skills as a researcher and fact checker to help our movement. So that was the GoFundMe. Now, they did some more checking because they thought, okay, look, we found this GoFundMe. This one, her story, very, very flimsy, but we still got to do our due diligence, right? Maybe we got something wrong. So we're going to fact check this. We're going to see if her name is the same or different, because it's a fairly common name, right? Jamie T. Phillips, right? Well, in addition to the name, one of the two donations listed on the page was from a person whose name matched her daughter's, according to public records. And so that seemed to have cemented among all these other red flags that this is not a person who had any real information, who was actually trying to set up a sting. So the Washington Post set up their own sting, which was awesome. Now, they met with they agreed that the second reporter agreed to meet with Jamie Phillips, who brought along some videographers on the side. And during that meeting, she asked Phillips to identify herself with a photo, and then asked her about the GoFundMe page. She said, we have a process of doing checking backgrounds, and this is in this kind of thing. So I wanted to ask you about one thing. I wanted to ask you if you could explain this. And she had actually taken out a picture of that GoFundMe page. And I also wanted to let you know, Jamie, that this is being recorded and video recorded. Okay, Phillips said. Yeah, I was looking to take a job last summer in New York, but it fell through. Yeah, I was going to be with the Daily Caller, but it ended up falling through, so I wasn't able to do it. When asked who at the Daily Caller had interviewed her, she said, quote, Kathy, before pausing, adding the last name, Johnson. Yeah, Kathy Johnson. That's who she is. I interviewed with her. That's who it was. No, it actually wasn't. Later on, they got a hold of the Daily Caller and asked her about Kathy Johnson, about Jamie T. Phillips. And it turns out they hadn't heard of her. Paul Connor, executive editor at the Daily Caller, said Monday that no one with the name Kathy Johnson works for the publication and has no record of having interviewed Phillips. Connor later said in an email that he had asked other top editors at the Daily Caller and the affiliated Daily Caller News Foundation about Phillips. Quote, none of us has interviewed a woman by the name of Jamie Phillips. Oops. So, super obvious lie, okay? And they found that out after the meeting, which ended with Phillips just saying, hey, you know what? Turns out I don't want to sell my story. I'm just going to leave. Okay. Now, Post reporters, after that happened, went to look at the GoFundMe page and found that it was gone. The only message that was left, and by the way, the day that she walked out of that interview, she took down that fundraiser, and it said, campaign is complete and no longer active. Look, there it was. So, okay. Now, here's the thing, right? This was awesome. The fact that the Washington Post caught on with, again, they did their homework and actually set up this sting to go out and take this person down who was actually trying to take them down. Super awesome. But the thing is that I don't think that when it comes to the right wing, the people who actually believe Project Veritas, the people in the conservative movement, they're not actually going to, believe in the Washington Post. This isn't going to change anything. See, here's the thing, right? This is actually going to end up working in favor of Project Veritas when it comes to their conservative readers. Now, look, let me give an example. The Planned Parenthood videos, the baby parts videos, right, that were widely debunked and people actually went to jail for, they're conservatives that still believe it. They're still talking about baby parts. Now, I realize the whole point was to discredit accusers of Roy Moore, and as well as the Washington Post, right? Oh, fake news, right? Here's Washington Post coming up with fake news, fake interviews. Now, look, they failed at this, right? But the people who follow Roy Moore, the people who never believed in the Washington Post, still don't care. As of now, Roy Moore is still 5 points ahead. Only 9% of Trump voters believe in the accusations against Moore. And no matter what, they will not believe anything posted in the Washington Post. So, yeah, they may have defended themselves, and they did great. They did their due diligence. They did their homework. They did what every news organization is supposed to do in this sort of situation. But none of this is going to sway Trump supporters. None of this is going to sway the people who have convinced themselves that that all other news than right-wing news is fake. They live in their own reality. Again, this is why O'Keefe and Veritas are still in business despite their massive record of failure. They have the true believers. And unfortunately, that is not going to change. Now, fortunately for the majority of us, the Post did an excellent job, again, exposing Veritas for what it actually is, so that people who are not true believers, people who don't know much about politics, don't know much about the right wing, regular people, regular voters, can see Veritas and the right wing for exactly what it is. And I guess at the end of the day, that's the only victory that we have. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.